So, episode 7, today we are going to try to prototype some things with Claude and artifacts. Like,
Yes,
what do you have in
this
mind?
is piggybacking on our last episode where we used ChatGPT to prototype some things very quickly that are difficult to do with a lot of the kind of industry standard, if you will, design tools at our disposal, things like Figma. Some things are just the juice is not worth the squeeze, shall we say. So a lot of designers end up not prototyping some of these things at all, or at the level of fidelity that they could if we went straight from Sketch into the browser. So last week, or a couple weeks ago now, we made a quick prototype of something that is a map interface that used a real mapping library where you could zoom in and zoom out and see tooltips and things like that. We had this idea for this episode of trying a different LLM. So we're going to use Claude this time, as you mentioned, and we're going to try to see if we can use Claude's artifacts engine to give us a prototype that enables a user to enter in information as they would in a form. So another thing that Figma doesn't do that great. So you can type into a form field. Maybe we check some radio buttons or checkboxes, and then we want to submit that form and see some feedback on the next page.
Yeah, it sounds simple enough. Sounds like it's should be simple. I think the system will probably handle it pretty well, but we'll see.
We'll find out. We're gonna call the shot once we enter our our prompt, just like we did a couple of weeks ago, and see if it gives us some workable code. It'll be a ride. We'll see what we get.
Cool. Should we jump into it then?
Sure, let's try it. So let's craft this prompt together, shall we? First, it might be interesting to think a little bit about exactly what we're trying to get Claude to do for us. We mentioned a couple things, like we wanted to take in information that the user submits, enters on this form. So we know that we have like some form fields that we want filled out. Maybe we just keep it super simple to like one thing or two things, and then some kind of submit button. And then we know that we want to see the result of the thing that the user did on another page. So what form should we make? What's a good starter here to kick the tires on this?
I feel like the most boring form would be like a sign up form. That's one.
Sign up. Okay. Yeah, sign up.
The,
Or the other super boring one I was thinking was login.
Right. Yeah. I guess, yeah, a login form. The alternative could be like a to-do list, maybe. But that doesn't necessarily require like any sort of submit. I like the login form.
Okay.
Like a 2-page
yeah.
step.
Super boring, but the exciting thing will be is to see if it works. And if it does, the implications are huge, right? You could start to then say, well, instead of a login form, I want an order form, and I want to see the receipt of my order. Those kinds of things. Again, super hard to prototype in a visual tool. Okay, so and we're going to use artifacts. And so, how do we get our prompt to know that we want to do that? We'd say like, I'd like an artifact, please.
Yeah, an artifact using, I would say like, there's a chance it might try to use like React. So you might say like artifact using like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and plain JavaScript.
And yeah, plain JavaScript that that enables a user to enter a username and password and click a submit button. The user then goes to a logged so we don't actually want to, so again, taking a step back here, right? Like we're prototyping an interaction. So I don't want to tell Claude that we actually want to log the user in. It just needs to look like it, because we're trying to do smoke and mirrors here.
Right.
So the user then goes to a page that shows them a welcome message with their username, like welcome username,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah. I would
How is this
say,
sounding to you?
yeah. I think if you want to get Claude to definitely or be uh, to create the prototype, then I would maybe include that up front. It's like, hey, like you to create a clickable prototype for the purposes
Ooh,
of user testing. Make it as an artifact.
type using HTML. I guess it doesn't matter where in our prompt we say make it an artifact, right? So like,
I would start it
um,
in the beginning, maybe. I feel like
okay.
that's where my intuition is. It's unfounded.
Should we say using a Claude artifact?
I think just an artifact is enough. Using an artifact. Yeah. Either way is fine. I think it's gonna be like an artifact.
Yeah. Yep, I
Yeah.
love that we're specifying here. This is a great call, I think, to that what we're telling it what we want. We want a clickable prototype, so it
Hmm.
knows it's not actually trying to scaffold a React app or something like that. We're saying raw HTML, CSS, JavaScript.
Hmm.
We've got our two form fields, right? Enter in a username and a password. Maybe we could even specify this further as text inputs.
Hmm.
More
Yep.
specificity, more specificity feels better there. We've got a
Yeah.
submit button, and then they go to a page that shows them a welcome message with their username, like welcome
Yeah.
username dot.
So
Cool.
let's see. I think before we submit, sometimes I also like this. This could be a separate thing. I don't know if you want to do this, but we can also ask like
Sure.
before you build it, ask me if there's anything else you want to know. Like we ask Claude to ask us clarification questions before it starts
Oh, like
building.
before you build it, let me know if you're.
If you have any questions, yeah.
Was that clear, Claude? Do you have everything that you need to do this?
Yeah, sometimes it works. Like sometimes if I like I feel like my request might be misinterpreted in different ways or it's incomplete, I'll like give it what I know and then I'll say like, hey, and then by the way, before you do this, ask me any other questions you have about this to clarify.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So a question for people that might want to try what we're doing here immediately after we do this. We're
Yep.
using Claude's free plan, right? So we know that we're going to be like paywalled at some point. If
Yep.
this takes several prompts to get to, it's going to
Yep.
park us. The worry I have with this, as a non expert
Yeah. Yeah.
here with Claude specifically, is like, is it going to use tokens to do that? Is it going to like penalize me for asking it if it
I
got
mean,
everything?
it would definitely use it, but so like we can skip that for now if you want. Let's just go this way. We have this now. Let's just like go for it and see what we get.
Cool. Okay. Um, but maybe we could role play Claude and see, is there anything that sort of gives you the heebie-jeebies that this is not going to work? Like, and
I
is there
think,
something that we
yeah.
can do in our prompt engineering here to like address that?
I think let's see. I'm trying to think of like where it might like so like we have it using an artifact. Mm, I think the part of like a second page might be problematic, but again, I'm curious like what would happen because or like maybe like displays like a new screen or like displays like the logged in screen or displays like the updated state, because I think that the
Oh,
multi-page stuff might
yeah.
trip it up because it's usually just like one contained
Mm.
anything that doesn't have
Well,
like separate URLs.
that's a really great point because this being a smoke and mirrors thing, it doesn't actually have to go to a new page. It could just use JavaScript to like hide the
Hmm.
login form and then
Hmm.
show the results. It doesn't have to be a multi-page
Yeah,
application.
yeah.
Hmm.
So then maybe one thing we can add here is like after user clicks submit, like show like a loading state transition and then show the new state, the
Ooh.
logged in state.
After the user clicks submit, uh, show a brief loading state. Um, then
Right.
show
The logged in page.
the user a welcome, a screen that looks like a logged in state, a logged in page with
Mhm.
a welcome message,
Yeah.
with their name, with their username. Yeah. So taking a step back, we're at least we're making a facsimile of a multi-page application, and the main value here is that we're doing a thing that's really hard to prototype in like a Sketch or a Figma. I just showed my age by saying Sketch. That takes information that was entered into a form and displays it on
Yep.
another page, but it's not
Yep.
necessarily another page. Okay, cool. I feel pretty confident about this. Is there anything else we should do to wordsmith this, or just should go for broke and hit
Let's just
submit?
go for it. I have some other thoughts that will
Cool.
ways to improve of like the prototype after we did this for sure.
Okay, cool. This is exciting. I haven't used this one in a while, so I have no idea what's going to happen. But let's go enter. Boop, 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 boop. So helpful. I'm going to create a simple login prototype. Thank you. Look at it go. CSS being written before our eyes. Oh, it's got a
Loadings.
spinner. That's
Yep.
cool.
Keyframes.
Keyframes, animation.
Nice.
Yes. Oh, I just love watching it generate code. It's so much fun. Oh, we got our so
Script.
it's putting everything in one
Mm-hmm.
document. Um,
Whoa.
that is super cool. Okay.
I
So
think
the preview is legit.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Let's just take a quick skim at the code here. So it looks like, yeah, it threw everything into one giant
Mm-hmm.
HTML. It's got the script at the bottom. And then I think it threw the CSS in the head. But we
Mm-hmm.
got the welcome screen, the loading state. Okay. And our welcome screen says welcome, welcome username, ID. So yeah, I think it's going to use that to
Mm.
hook onto for the JavaScript.
Yep.
Um, Sweet. Okay. I feel pretty confident this is going to work.
Okay, let's go for it.
I'm excited. Yeah. Okay. So preview. Let's use your name.
Okay.
Uh, a password you like. Let's do the
Just
robots are coming. I just said my password out loud publicly.
very insecure.
Big no. Okay, cool. Moment of truth. Submit. Wow. I did click submit.
Cool.
No.
Okay. Um.
And the tricky thing about this, okay, so just
Yep.
reflecting on my experience using artifacts for the
Yep.
first time in a while, versus the one that we did a couple weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
using ChatGPT and VS Code, is that like debugging this is going to be, I worry that it's going to be a pain in the rear end because like I don't know why it's breaking right now, and I can't
Right.
see.
Right.
If I go back
Yep.
to the
Totally.
code mode, I'm just seeing the source code. I'm not seeing where
Yeah.
it actually failed. So
That
that's kind
is
of a
that.
bummer.
Yeah, that's definitely a bummer. So there's here's the thing that is always like I'm still learning is that once it doesn't do as we expected, instead of us troubleshooting, just tell Claude, it's like, hey, I click submit and the screen did not change.
Great point. Yes. Okay. So, hey, thanks, bro.
So
Um,
yeah, I think it's good to confirm like what it's like we're seeing the login the sign in form, but blank.
we're seeing the login form as we expect. It's probably really wondering why I'm using we.
I know. Who's
Can I actually like
yeah,
do
yep,
you
you
know
can
if this
close it.
is okay?
Yeah, you can
Oh,
close
cool.
it.
Nice. Um, we're seeing the login form as we expect, but when clicking submit, nothing happens. Please
Can you
fix.
yes.
XOXO.
No, that's gonna I don't know. I'm not include that. I feel like that's gonna just fix, yeah.
You're not into speaking folksy to ChatGPT or to your LLM. I find as evidenced a couple weeks ago, I think that there's something to it. But let's see what happens. Let me check why. Please check why.
Yeah. So what's interesting is like it will just generate like a whole new version, right? It'll write the new code like top to bottom.
Yeah, all over
Um,
again. That's interesting.
yeah.
With trying this again with ChatGPT a few weeks ago, and I've got a lot more reps with that one than this. So this is kind of a whole new interface for me,
Mhm.
relatively speaking. Yeah. So it I was going to say the one thing I liked about ChatGPT is that it will also sort of tell you where it
Mhm.
thinks the error was in the code. This is doing that too. So anyway, without reading this, let's just see if this
Yeah.
um, does some things. Type in the
Wait, you should add my
password. Blah blah
name.
blah.
Use my name. I want the satisfaction of seeing it.
Fair. Okay. Submit. Womp womp.
Oh no. Okay. So
No.
so here's a next thing I would try instead of like asking to like fix again is that there's two things. One is like we either publish it and see if like that's affecting like the prototyping part.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the other thing we could do is like just download it, like copy the code, download
Yep.
it, and then just like load it as like a text file into like a browse new tab window and see if like we're getting anything differently there.
Totally. Yeah, I will say I do find the lack of the feedback in the console
Hmm.
frustrating. It also makes me wonder, like how robust um is their little IDE here,
Hmm.
and like yeah, where might that be the issue? So, oh cool. So what does the publish button do? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So once you publish it, there will be a URL that allows anybody to access this artifact online in the new
Uh-huh.
tab. So like once you publish it, it will have its own window. Right now, it's like a sidebar or like a side panel within the chat
Yep.
window, right? So once you publish it, we could inspect the console and see what's happening,
Okay.
um, because it will be its own standalone page.
Cool.
So
Why don't we give that
yeah,
a shot first? It's right
yeah,
here. It's just waiting to be clicked.
go for it.
Ooh, unpublished, only you have access. Okay, want to make it accessible. Publish and copy link. Groovy.
Cool. So open a
It
new tab.
is copy link. Open a new tab, which I am not sharing right now, so I'm going to have to.
Well, if you, I
Uh,
see, yeah,
yeah, let me
cool.
stop sharing my screen. There we go. You're reviewing a user-generated artifact. Thank you. Don't show this message again. Show content. Awesome. So we got Francisco and our super secret password. Submit. Nope.
No, nothing.
Negative. But you're
Cool.
saying that here I might still have a little bit more luck with the console
Yeah, if you
to
inspect the
understand.
console, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't
Okay.
see the
Okay.
console right now on the screen share, but
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Hmm. Well, what I can tell you is that there is a whole lot of red. Um, it looks like what I'm seeing here. Let me stop, and we don't need to debug this here, but this is at least helpful to know for folks that are making. Stop sharing. How's this looking?
Yeah.
There we
Yep.
go. Yeah, now we can see the console. Uncaught type error cannot read properties of null reading at event listener. So looks like there is an error on line 1 of our JavaScript. Um,
Yeah.
so
So the two things we can do again. I think even if we like download the file and like ran this locally, it might get us the same error. The other thing we could do is just like copy and paste the error and like feed it back to Claude and say like, hey, here's the thing.
I like it. Let's do that. Um, and I think, because I'm sharing this window, let me try this. I'm going to
Just drag
pull.
the tab into it. Yeah, nice.
Yep, 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 yep. Sweet. Okay, so um, we're getting this error when running this prototype,
Or when
and
hitting
let me
submit, right?
just. Well, that's interesting because I'm not sure exactly when the error
When I
came
see.
up.
Cool. Yep. Yeah.
So It very well could be, but I'm
Yeah.
not 100% sure.
Cool.
Oh, and maybe just for funsies, I'll say that this is on
I don't think you need to. I think you just go for it.
yeah, just to go
Yeah.
for it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Cool. Can you make your window also fill up the screen? Your browser window a little bit wider. Yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
Sweet. All right, let's see. The error occurred because we removed the add event listener code but left a reference to it. Let me provide a corrected version that uses just one consistent approach. Cool. Yes. One consistent approach. That sounds lovely. Thank you. Cool. So let's go Francisco and super secret password. I'm going to tab and enter this time. And no dice.
Nice.
No dice.
Publish again. I don't think it's going to change anything. Once you publish it, it'll probably still be the same thing.
I don't think so either, because
Yeah.
everything is happening here.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
sending any information to local storage. It should at least our ask, right? We haven't actually read the code yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe let's just do a really quick. Yeah. Well, okay. Let's try to see if we can get Claude to fix its own code here
Yeah.
without trying to read anything. Since again, taking a step back, we're trying to say that these tools have gotten to the point where you don't actually have to debug it yourself. It can fix it on its own.
Right.
But maybe let's try one more shot here to see if we can somehow get Claude to correct this issue rather than just saying like, hey, it doesn't work again. Any ideas?
Yeah. I'm all out of ideas. I feel like these are things. Well, here's like where 1 second. Here's where sorry. Where the systems are frustrating because sometimes it works magically and then sometimes it just gets stuck in a loop.
Yep.
Right. 1 sec. Yeah. So do you have any ideas?
I'm less familiar with using Claude. And what
Yeah.
is kind of surprising to me, having done a lot of pairing with ChatGPT, is that the initial prompt that we gave it seemed very straightforward. Like there's nothing super complex here. I've asked ChatGPT to do much more complex things, and this is by no means a advertisement for ChatGPT. I'm just saying my experience using that one versus this. So I will say I'm surprised. And we gave it a couple times to sort of fix itself. Maybe one thing that we can suggest is sometimes this will happen where if I'm trying to work on a problem, and regardless of the LLM that I'm using, I'm sort of like getting deeper into a hole and it's not figuring out how to bail itself out. Sometimes I'll try two things. I'll go back to the original prompt and say like, is there anything in there that sort of like set it astray from the get-go? Or I may just open up a whole new window. So I'm like, I know that it's kind of remembering some of the context. Like trash that and let's start over. We could also tell it, like, hey, let's just like start over here. And I might just go up and like grab the initial prompt that I had here and try to wordsmith this a little bit. Say like, let's start over from
I would actually
scratch.
not do that. I would just like start a new chat completely
Okay.
because even if you say start a new chat, it's gonna send like your entire conversation thread to it, and that's just gonna use up a whole bunch of tokens.
Got
So
it.
if you want to start new, just like start new. Yeah.
Great pro tip. Okay, so we've started over, and let's see if there's anything in this initial prompt that may have sort of set it astray, or see if we can sort of steer it to try a different approach.
Yeah.
Anything stand out to you? Maybe
Go ahead.
I was thinking like maybe the word plain was giving it, sending it some
Mm,
kind of an approach to use that maybe I don't know.
yeah.
I'm grasping here, but but it didn't seem like it helped.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, and sometimes I've actually used the word vanilla,
yeah.
and I think it gets what that means, that it's framework less JavaScript. But
Yep.
let's try it without any modifier here and see what we get.
Yeah. I'm skeptical that it's gonna work unless we try something different. So we can try it, and if it still doesn't work, then we should just try like ChatGPT or something as like and see what it does instead.
Cool. Yeah, what would be kind of interesting is if this one doesn't work, we copy paste the code verbatim,
Hmm.
and maybe remove using an artifact, since
Yep.
another system wouldn't know what that means. We try it and see if we can one shot it.
Yep.
But cool, because it styled it perfectly. It's just like, yeah, cool, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So let's give this a go. Maybe it'll just sort of try something new on its own. But my confidence is wavering
Hmm.
with Claude, at
Yeah.
least using this particular approach. Okay, so that's looks almost exactly the same as we had before. So let's try username, password. Bummer.
Bummer.
That
Okay.
big button just wants to be clicked, and
Yep.
it's so sad that it just does nothing.
Bummer. Bummer. So maybe maybe the learning here is that multi-page interactions don't work well with Claude, or we're not or it
Mm,
might be a skill issue.
yes. Yeah, it could be, we need to be very specific about the how, which
Yeah.
is a bummer,
Yeah.
admittedly. I feel like the problem that we're asking it is one that, there are a whole host of ways that you could build this. And when left to its own devices, it's picking an approach that just doesn't seem to work.
Yeah.
Um, I'm still not super confident, by the way, that it doesn't have something to do with the artifact and or the house that it's being put in to render it.
Yeah.
Again, having not really taken a super close look here at these errors that we're
Yeah.
receiving, um, I have more confidence in taking the raw code output and using the
That.
browser, just Chrome or Firefox or whatever, to
Yeah.
render it, outside of any kind of
Do you
application
want to
within an application.
try that instead of ChatGPT instead?
We could. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a minute, while I spin this up here.
Yeah. Yep.
All I'm going to do is go back to the code. I'm going to download to a file, and I'm going to open up VS Code here, which I don't actually even need to do that. Actually, I could just open up log the
The
drag this into
browser.
the browser. Yeah,
Yeah.
straight to the browser. Why go to an IDE?
Yeah. Share your
Okay,
screen at
so
some point.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so now we have the file that I downloaded. I'm going to open up the console too, so we can see at least when this error happens.
It's when you type
Francisco.
Francisco. Maybe it's the name that's throwing it out.
it's, it's your name. That's why it's not working. Oh, there we go. Hey, it worked.
That's
So
awesome. It's a
that's
browser.
sweet. Yeah.
It's a
And it
browser.
gave us our loading state. It's the browser.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is great. We're at 30 minutes, and I'm so glad that we got to something that works. We
Nice.
did it.
Yeah.
So, what can we take away from this? For me, there's one clear thing, which is that artifacts cool, but I'd rather just pull it into the browser and have access to the browser
Hmm.
tools
Yep.
and remove another possible place where it could go wrong.
Yep. If you hit
for
log
now.
out, what happens at this point?
We didn't tell it to do anything there. What do you think will happen?
I mean, like hopefully it shows the initial state, right? So you can log in again.
That would be sweet. We didn't ask it to do that. So if it does, I would be really pleasantly surprised. Hey, that's cool.
Nice, nice.
We
That's
got a
awesome.
feature for free. When does that happen?
Rarely,
That never
but
happens.
yeah,
Nothing is
yeah.
free. But
This was
except that was free.
yeah. This is cool.
Yeah.
I yeah, I think your point about the artifacts introduces another layer for debugging is like challenging. But the fact that you can just prototype this, download the HTML file, and then just like put it into a browser is something that's
Yep.
pretty cool.
I think so too. I thought that was awesome. I was also really surprised how well this was skinned since we didn't
Yep.
give it anything about how to style it.
Yeah.
Also thought that the styling for the loading spinner was really nice. I like the duration that it had the loading spinner there. Really feels like this is a real working application, which is the exact effect that I try to shoot for when prototyping straight in the browser. Like the
Hmm.
user should know that it's not actually a real thing. And I think that
Right.
that effect is quite clear. And you get the nice feedback that, like, whoa, it wrote this thing to a real database and now it's showing it to me. How is
Hmm.
it doing that? Like, well,
Yep.
no, psych, it's all fake.
Yep. Totally, it's awesome. I think we can, if we're to continue this, there's probably like a few other things that you want to add to the prototype, which is like error states. So if you log out now, right now, if you don't type anything, submit. I wonder like the screen would just probably say welcome exclamation mark, right? And it probably won't break,
Oh, good point. Yeah, we didn't put
right?
any form field validations or anything like that.
Right. So I feel like that's like the thing that you could add if you have form fields, just like have the happy path prototyped, and then at some point you might have to test like error states to see if like the messages are clear or like any other
Totally.
sort of like input selections.
Yep. So, having not specified any of that, and that being much more complex than the sort of reversal state, the logout to show us to get us back
Yeah.
here, I have
Yeah.
much less confidence. Although I would be extremely pleasantly surprised if it put something in there. I suspect that when we hit submit, um, like you said, it's just going to take us to the logged in state. It's going to be blank. But
Right.
let's see what
Yep.
happens. What? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty
It
cool.
might just be using like the default input
Yeah,
fields, right?
but still, I think that that's a nice yeah. Maybe let me take a well. Okay, I'm gonna resist the urge to look at what's happening in the HTML, but or
Yeah.
in the JavaScript, but that's pretty cool.
Well,
Um,
now fill out the name and then hit submit and see what happens.
just any name.
Yeah, just any name.
Yep. They're just random string of characters.
No, don't fill the password. I want to see what kind of error state the password
Oh,
had.
oh, got it,
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. I
Yeah.
hear you. So let's do Steve. No password.
Okay, cool. It's just the same thing. That's cool. It's like
Yeah.
catching it, right? So you need to
Yeah,
like
it
fill
knows
out.
that these are required. That
Yeah. I guess
is
like
that's pretty cool.
I guess no, seeing that it was like a when you type in the password, the fact that it's asterisk, it's already had like it's probably had some form of like form validation on it because it's like the
Mhm.
right type of input field
Yep.
on it. Yeah,
Yeah, let's
cool.
see. Let's go back here really quick and see if it's on label, text ID, username. So this is just all
It just
there's
says
nothing in
required.
here. Ah, yep.
The
There you are.
required, yeah, and then the password like type password is yeah, those are just like I think the right sort of accessibility and like web standards to include.
Yeah,
So like include some of that stuff without us being
that's
fancy.
cool. I didn't know that. Learn something every day.
Yeah.
Which is half the fun, I think, of doing this. This has been the advent of LLMs for the purposes of generating code has been such an accelerant for me
Hmm.
learning new methods and just things like this today that teaches me a good practice to then look out for in an actual production situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's plenty of cases where these LLMs generate not great production patterns, but this is one where this is just a tool that now I know. That's cool.
Yeah.
I learned something.
Yeah. So
Thank
now
you.
now that we have figured this out, how might you be using it, Mike, for prototyping?
For prototyping, like how would this specific one or like
Yeah. Or just like I guess there's this type of fields, right? Like the fact that you can submit a form, have the data displayed again, right? That feels like it unlocks certain types of prototypes that you couldn't do with Figma before.
oh totally yeah and at least things that would take so much longer to scaffold. Now that we have these bones, for example, this could be repurposed to not be a simple login screen, or like maybe it's now that I'm logged in, I can do something else. Like I can look like I'm creating an entity. Whether it's I can simulate whole CRUD workflows, create, read, update, delete workflows that look like they have real information. Um, those types of workflows, I think, are really hard to do. The juice is not worth the squeeze. I think to try to put one of those together in something like Figma, I think I'm just going to
Yeah.
be spending so much more time trying to like manage all the states,
Yeah.
and you get some mileage with things like variables and variants of components and things like that, but you're doing it in this kind of WYSIWYG editor that takes a lot of time to figure out how to use it, one, how to use it properly, and just to manage all the states, design them all deliberately. I feel like this gets me very far very fast, and then I can use the raw CSS and HTML that it's generated if I really want to futz with some of the styles. But usually for me, this is about testing the functionality rather than the form specifically. And I feel like this is getting us very far, very fast.
Yeah. I think at this point, there's probably two things that somebody, like, if you or somebody was doing this, they could do. One is like download the HTML file and you say, like, it's a template, right? Now you have a
Yep,
template of a prototype where
totally.
you like submit a form, go somewhere else. And I feel like if you want to like do this for like the next project, you would just upload this HTML file to Claude and say, like, hey, update this file to like match these like fields and then display this content after the form is submitted. So that then Claude doesn't need to like generate the entire these two pages from scratch. So that's one way of like building on top of previous prototypes.
Hmm.
Then the second thing I can imagine is you could probably take a screenshot of like any sort of like site, like WYSIWYG or like CRUD app or like form field that you want, and say like, hey Claude, you feed it a screenshot and say like, give me like the JSON structure of these fields, and then you can use that as your like mock database for prototyping, right? So you can say like, hey, here's like a I don't know profile, right? And the profile might have like username,
Ooh, I
email,
love
or
that
like
idea.
permissions, and then like that's just like now you have both like the screenshot of the layout and also the screenshot of like the JSON structure of the data. And then you can
Yep.
potentially like modify and say like, hey, create a new page with this data structure, and then have like Claude like generate both like the form to be editable and infer what the states might be between like before and after editing.
I love that. There's so many ways I think to use this type of bare bones scaffolding to create experiences that look and feel very real. The end user would be none the wiser. And I think it just makes for such a richer testing and feedback experience where you have to, especially when a user is not familiar with using a static image based prototype. There are certain affordances that either are not there, like the cursor changing using default browser behaviors, like when it changes to a pointer, The scale can be kind of different because you're missing the chrome around the interface, and it just it lacks those affordances that you get by having something that is in the browser.
Yeah, totally. Um, yeah, I think this was a pretty. Uh, I'm pretty happy with where we got in half an hour. I guess like we failed like two or
Yeah,
three
yeah.
times
I mean,
consecutively.
when I think about it, we failed. Well, and for fair to ourselves, we didn't see why it didn't work. The thing that I get excited about is that we used the same prompt after failing a couple times that we did from the get go, and so I'm actually pretty sure if we were to go back to our original response, download that, pull that straight into the browser, that would have worked immediately.
Right.
So the takeaway I get is that we got here in just as long as it took us to craft that prompt.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think like whomever's watching this or the folks that are watching this, you could probably get here in like 5 minutes now. Now that you know like what the right way is to like work around Claude's artifacts, right?
Totally. And of course, like all this is changing so fast, right? I mean, artifacts didn't exist a few months ago. Um, the models are getting, better at writing code and debugging themselves, so maybe the artifact is a fantastic tool to stay in just a few months. I wouldn't be surprised. But I do like the feedback that you get from the console in just the vanilla browser itself. And it does, like as we mentioned when we first saw this work for the first time here, it removes a point of potential error.
Yeah, totally. This is cool. All right,
Yeah,
now we
I'm
gotta start thinking
excited.
about yeah,
Yeah, we gotta we gotta throw more things that are hard to prototype outside the browser. Get it in the browser, get it looking real as quickly as possible, and see what this Pandora's box of rapid prototyping has in store.
cool. All right, until next time, more prototyping until then.
Yeah, and please let us know if you've got any ideas for something that you think would make for a really compelling prototype that again is hard to prototype in a tool like a Figma or an Illustrator or something like that. Let us know. We'll see if we can work it into an episode and get it live as quickly as possible.
Yeah, let's do it.